The moment Layla's tray slipped from her hands, time shattered. Hot tea splashed like a dark halo across the sleek, white marble floor. The silver cutlery clattered, bouncing once, twice, before falling still. And at the center of the chaos stood a man in a three-piece suit worth more than her entire year's tuition. Zayn Malik, the coldest, most unreachable man in the city. Billionaire CEO of Malik Global. And now drenched. A gasp rippled through the ballroom. Layla stood frozen, her heart hammering so violently it hurt. Her trembling fingers were still curled around the tray's edge, and her breath came shallow, like she was drowning in plain air. I'm so sorry, she stammered. But the words tasted like ashes. Dozens of elite guests turned, phones subtly lifted. The scene was a PR disaster in real time. Cameras flashed like judgment. Zayn looked down at his ruined suit, his crisp white shirt now stained amber and soaked against his sculpted torso. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to meet hers. Those eyes. Ice. Smoke. Fire. No fury. No shouting. Just silence, so sharp it pierced through the noise. Layla's legs almost buckled. She had worked herself to the bone for a chance to serve at this elite university gala, her final internship to qualify for a scholarship. One mistake, and she'd lose everything. This wasn't just an accident. It was her whole future unraveling in front of the most powerful man in the room. And still, she stood frozen, waiting for him to condemn her. But Zayn didn't say a word. He stepped back, his eyes unreadable, then gestured for his assistant. "Get me another suit," he said coldly. "And tell the dean I'm no longer interested in funding tonight's program." Layla's stomach dropped. Gasps again. Eyes turned. Whispers flew like daggers. And just like that, the entire scholarship ceremony sponsored by the Malik Foundation was destroyed. Because of her. The dean rushed over, red-faced and sweating. "Mr. Malik, please, let me assure you, this student will be removed immediately." Layla's mouth opened. "No, please, I didn't." "Silence," barked the dean. Zayn turned to leave, but something made him pause. He glanced back, just once. His eyes lingered on her for a fraction too long. And, in that second, something flickered. Recognition? Regret? No. That was impossible. He didn't know her. She was no one. 20 minutes later, Layla sat on the cold marble steps outside the university, still in her server's uniform, her apron crumpled in her lap. Rain had started to fall, soft and steady, like the sky was mourning with her. She stared ahead blindly, her vision blurred by shame. All the years she'd fought through poverty, abuse, hunger, being called charity girl, all led to this, a single clumsy second that ruined everything. "You handled that better than I expected." The voice came from behind her, deep, smooth, unmistakable. She turned sharply. Her heart stopped. Zayn Malik stood beneath the awning, holding an umbrella. Dry. Impeccable. Redressed in another perfect suit. His expression was blank. But his eyes. Why was he here? Layla scrambled to her feet, panicked. "I didn't mean to. I swear I wasn't trying to ruin your event." "I know," he said simply. That stunned her. "You what?" He stepped closer, watching her like she was a puzzle he hadn't solved yet. "You didn't spill the tea. Someone nudged you," he said, calm and calculated. Layla blinked, confused. How could you know that?" "I pay attention," he said, "even when no one else does." Something in his tone made her chest ache. A quiet admission hidden in a ruthless man's voice. He reached into his coat and pulled out a business card. "Come to this address tomorrow," he said. 9 a.m. sharp. She looked at it, then back at him. "Why?" "You'll find out." And with that, he turned and walked into the rain. His umbrella tilted just slightly, not to shield himself, but so it wouldn't drip on her. She stared at the card. Malik Global Headquarters. Office of the CEO. What did he want with her? The revolving doors of Malik Global spun like a portal into another universe. Layla hesitated, the CEO's sleek black card clenched in her trembling fingers. Her shoes, clean but worn, squeaked faintly on the pristine marble. Inside, everything smelled of power and glass and decisions made in seconds that changed lives forever. She was 17 minutes early. She still felt late. Name? The receptionist asked without looking up. Layla Noor. Mr. Malik asked me to. The woman blinked, finally meeting her gaze. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. A low, urgent whisper followed. Moments later, a suited assistant, straight-backed, stone-faced, appeared and gestured. This way. Layla followed in silence, her heartbeat louder than her footsteps. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, save for the subtle jazz playing above. Each floor that passed only reminded her how far above her world this one was. When the doors opened, she saw him, Zayn Malik, leaning against the edge of his massive glass desk, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He wasn't looking at her. Not yet. He was reading something, his expression hard as steel. And then, as if sensing her presence in his bones, he looked up. Their eyes locked. Everything inside her went still. Sit, he said simply. She sat, barely trusting her voice. Why did you ask me here? Zayn leaned back against the desk, arms folded. You made quite the impression last night. By embarrassing myself, she said bitterly. His brow arched. No. By holding her ground in front of a room full of wolves and not crying. Layla swallowed. He studied her like she was data, but his eyes flickered with something else. A faint tug of memory? Curiosity? She couldn't tell. I have a proposal, he said finally. Her pulse quickened. I'm looking for an assistant. Temporary. 6 weeks. Someone not easily influenced. Someone sharp. Someone who doesn't faint when I raise my voice. Layla blinked. You want me to work for you? Zayn tilted his head slightly. You'd be surprised how many highly educated people lack basic survival instincts. You, on the other hand, survived a scandal, held eye contact, and didn't beg. That's not the same as being qualified. He stepped closer, gaze unreadable. Qualifications are overrated. Loyalty, however, is priceless. Layla hesitated. Why me? A pause. Then softer. Because I trust people who've tasted struggle more than I trust those born in boardrooms. His voice was quiet, but it hit her like thunder. The offer was surreal, dangerous, tempting, but it came with consequences. I'll do it, she said, surprising herself. Good, he replied. You start now. 1 hour later, Layla was in his shadow. Literally. She trailed behind him through conference rooms, investor calls, and presentations so sharp they could cut air. Zayn didn't soften his pace for her. He didn't explain things twice. But he also didn't ignore her. He watched her. Every reaction. Every note she took. Every time she stood up to speak. Briefly, nervously. He said nothing, but his expression told her he was taking mental notes. By lunchtime, she had memorized his schedule. By afternoon, she intercepted 2 calls from fake charities and flagged a media leak before it could break. By evening, when she passed him a revised contract draft that fixed a loophole no one else noticed, he finally looked impressed. You edited this? He asked, glancing at the pages. I studied pre-law before switching to economics, she murmured. Couldn't afford both. He stared at her a second too long. Then he nodded once, and that was it. She felt oddly victorious. That night, outside the tower, Layla stepped out into the crisp evening air, her limbs aching from the unfamiliar tension of corporate life. As she turned the corner, a figure appeared, blocking her path. Rafiq, she gasped. It was the charming intern she'd had lunch with once. The same one whose photo with her had appeared in that scandalous gossip article last week. Hey, he said, eyes shifting nervously. We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. I didn't leak the photo, Layla, he said quickly. I swear. But someone's trying to use you. And Zayn Malik? He's not who you think. Her stomach twisted. What do you mean? I mean, he leaned in, voice low. You're not just an assistant to him. You're a target. Someone wants him distracted. And you're the distraction. Before she could respond, A sleek black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down.
Zion.
His eyes locked onto Rafik like a sniper. "Get in," he said to Layla. Not a question. A command. Layla hesitated. For the first time today, she wasn't sure which man was the real danger. Rain streaked across the tinted window as Layla sat beside Zion in the silence of his sleek, black car. The city lights flickered past in fractured reflections, but her focus was locked on the man beside her, the enigma wrapped in power and ice. "You didn't answer me," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "Why do people think I'm a distraction?" Zion didn't look at her. His jaw was clenched, a muscle ticking at the edge. "Because they know what I've spent years denying," he said finally. "I'm not immune. I can pretend all I want, but when it comes to you, I'm losing control." Layla blinked, stunned. He never said things like that. He didn't admit things. Not vulnerability. Not weakness. And yet, there it was, spoken like a confession dragged from the core of him. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Then why keep me around if I'm a liability to your empire?" He turned to her, eyes storm-dark and searching. "Because I'm beginning to think you might be the only thing real in it." She sucked in a breath. Her heart stammered. But before she could respond, the car jerked to a halt. They had arrived his penthouse. Without a word, he stepped out. After a beat of hesitation, she followed. Inside the penthouse, it was like stepping into another world. Marble floors, glass walls overlooking the skyline, silent, warm lighting. Everything sleek, minimal like its owner. But it didn't feel lived in. It felt guarded, like a palace built by someone who never intended to call it home. Zion loosened his tie and poured himself a drink. Layla stayed near the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at the glimmering city below. Her reflection shimmered against the glass, but her thoughts were turbulent. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked softly. He studied her, then spoke with deliberate honesty. "Because if someone's using you to get to me, I'd rather keep you where I can see you." She turned sharply. "So, I'm just another pawn in your empire?"
"No," he said.
"You're the only one I don't trust to stay safe on her own." Her lips parted, but before she could speak, his phone buzzed. One glance at the screen, and his expression changed. "What is it?" she asked. "Someone leaked your university file," he said, voice tight. "Grades, background, everything. It's trending now." Her stomach dropped. "What?" Zion handed her the phone. The headline read, "From Rags to Riches? Malik's CEO's new intern has a troubled past. Is she his latest obsession?" Photos of her mother's rundown neighborhood. Her childhood illness. Even a mention of her father's criminal record. Layla's breath came in short gasps. "They're painting me like some charity case who seduced her way into power." Zion's voice cut through the spiral. "You didn't seduce anyone." She looked at him. "That won't matter to the world." Silence. Then he walked over, slow, precise, intense, and stood in front of her. "They don't define you," he said. "And they sure as hell don't define what I see when I look at you." Her eyes flicked to his. For once, his walls were down. She saw the man beneath the cold exterior. Not the billionaire. Not the empire. Just Zion. And in that second, he looked as lost as she felt. Her voice trembled. "Then what do you see?" His hand lifted, fingers brushing her jaw. Gently, reverently. "I see the only person who's ever looked me in the eye without flinching. The only one who doesn't care how many zeros are in my bank account. I see a storm I wasn't ready for." Their faces were inches apart. The air between them vibrated. And then, his phone rang again. Loud. Shattering. He stepped back like he'd been burned, cursing under his breath. Layla turned away, blinking back the heat rising in her chest. "I should go," she said, voice quiet. But before she could move, he said, "Layla." She looked over her shoulder. "I wasn't going to fall for anyone," he said. "Especially not someone who reminds me what it means to feel." Her breath caught. And then she left the room, heart pounding like a war drum. The elevator doors had barely shut before Layla's phone vibrated in her coat pocket. A blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. A distorted voice came through, low and urgent. If you care about the truth, come to the back of St. Margaret's orphanage. Tonight. Come alone. The line went dead. Layla stared at the screen, pulse thudding in her ears. It was past midnight. She should have turned her phone off, buried herself in bed, and pretended the day hadn't broken her into 1,000 confused, longing, aching pieces. But something in that voice made her blood run cold. 2 hours later, St. Margaret's orphanage. The alley behind the abandoned brick orphanage was damp, quiet, and shrouded in the kind of darkness that whispered things it shouldn't. Layla pulled her scarf tighter around her neck, eyes darting. Then a man stepped out from the shadows. Rafik. She gasped. What are you doing here? Were you the one who? He shook his head.
No.
I got the same message. Before she could respond, a rusted door creaked open. Light spilled out. An old nun in a navy habit stepped into view, her face pale and lined with worry. You're her, she asked, voice cracking. The girl from the headlines? Layla stepped forward slowly. Yes. The nun nodded. Then you deserve to know what Zion Malik tried to forget. She reached into a folder in her arms and pulled out a yellowing photograph. It showed a skinny boy, wild eyes, bruised knees, standing beside a younger version of Layla's mother. I remember your mother, the nun whispered. She brought that boy to us. Said he had no home, no name, but he refused to stay. Ran away after 2 days. Layla clutched the photo, her hand shaking. That boy was Zion, the nun said. And he left behind something no one's ever seen. She handed Layla a sealed envelope. Inside it was a letter, written in shaky, childish handwriting. I don't belong here. They'll come for me. If anyone finds this, tell her I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it. I just wanted to eat. ZM. Layla read the words over and over, her breath catching. He was a street kid, the nun said quietly. But there were rumors that he stole from the wrong people, that he saw something he wasn't supposed to. Layla looked up. Who was after him? The nun hesitated. Ask him yourself. But be careful. That boy survived by never telling anyone the full truth. Later that night, Malik Tower, private suite. Layla barged through the penthouse door. Zion was standing by the window again, city lights reflected in his eyes like broken stars. You lied to me, she said, voice sharp. He turned slowly, his gaze unreadable. You told me you grew up with nothing, but you never said you were running from something. Silence. She tossed the photo and letter on the glass table. He looked down, saw them, and his mask cracked. Where did you get this? Does it matter? She snapped. You used my mother's kindness and then disappeared. Why? His throat moved as he swallowed. When he spoke, his voice was low, raw. Because the people after me would have burned everything she built. I left to protect her. You were just a kid, Layla whispered. So were you, when you started carrying your mother's legacy alone, he replied softly. The air between them thickened with unspoken truths. Layla stepped closer. Why do you keep pushing people away? Even now? Zion's eyes glistened, not with tears, but restraint. Because I don't know how to love something without fearing it'll be taken from me. She stared at him. He stepped closer. She saved me, he whispered. And now you remind me of her. The fire, the fury, the forgiveness I don't deserve. Layla's breath hitched. And then, without warning, his hand reached for hers. Not possessively, not arrogantly, but as a drowning man reaches for something real. I'm not scared of you, Zion, she said, voice trembling. He smiled, faint and broken. That's what scares me. Layla didn't remember walking backward. She only realized when her spine hit the edge of the cold marble counter, and she dropped her phone. The threatening message still glared up from the screen. You found her. Good. Now watch her disappear, just like your mother did. Zion's knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the coffee table, his breath short and shallow. He wasn't reacting like a billionaire CEO with all the world's security at his fingertips. He was reacting like a son.
Haunted. Broken.
Terrified. Zion, Layla whispered. What does that mean, just like your mother did? His eyes flicked to hers, unguarded for the first time. She didn't die in her sleep, Layla, he said hoarsely. That's what the paper said. What I let them print. Her breath hitched. Zion slowly walked to the window, the skyline glittering behind him like distant fire. She worked as a bookkeeper for a shipping firm when I was 10. Nothing glamorous. Just numbers. But she discovered something. Money moving into accounts that didn't belong. Offshore. He paused. She thought it was a mistake. She brought it to her boss. And they silenced her, Layla guessed. His nod was barely visible. They staged it, made it look like an accident. But I saw everything that night. I heard the struggle. He turned around. I ran. Hid for years. Changed names. Built myself into someone no one could touch. But I never stopped watching the people responsible. Some of them are still in power. Still laundering money. Still covering things up. Layla felt like the floor might cave in. And now, he said grimly, they've found you. Later that night, she sat wrapped in one of Zion's oversized sweaters, curled up on the leather couch while he made call after call in his study. She heard words like trace IP and increase private security, but the details blurred around the thudding in her chest. Someone wanted to erase her, just like his mother. And the deeper she got into Zion's world, the clearer it became. This wasn't about spilled tea or tabloid gossip anymore. This was war. When he finally returned, she was staring blankly at the fire. I can't do this, Zion. He didn't flinch. You don't have to. She turned to him, eyes burning. I can't be a liability. I can't be the weak link that gets you killed. You're not weak, he said softly. Then why are you shaking, she whispered. Only then did she notice. His fingers trembled as he ran them through his hair. I've lost too much, he murmured. You're the first person I've let close since I was a kid. And now you're in the crosshairs because of me. Layla stood, her voice rising with her heartbeat. Then let me fight. Zion looked at her, startled. I won't run. I won't hide in your penthouse like a glass doll, she said. I've fought for every inch of my life. And I'm not afraid of powerful men in expensive suits who hide their crimes behind silence. For a moment, all he could do was stare at her. Then he stepped closer.
Slowly. Carefully.
Like she was more dangerous than his enemies. You're fire, he said under his breath. And I'm standing too close. Her chin lifted. Then burn with me. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce and devastating, the kind of kiss that said I've been holding back my whole life and I can't anymore. His hands tangled in her hair, her fingers gripped the lapels of his shirt, and the fire crackled behind them like fate itself was watching. They broke apart only when reality crashed back in. Zion's phone buzzed again. He answered. His face went still. What is it? Layla asked, breathless. He turned to her, expression sharp. Rafiq. He's missing. End of chapter cliffhanger. An anonymous package was delivered to Malik Global the next morning. Inside, Rafiq's security badge. A single photo of Layla, circled in red. And a note. The rain hadn't stopped since morning, as if the sky itself was mourning what had been taken. Layla stared at the photo in Zion's hand, her face circled in red ink, like a target. Below it lay Rafiq's security badge. She didn't need to ask if the threat was real. She could see it in Zion's clenched jaw, in the glass he hadn't touched, in the way his world was suddenly holding its breath. This ends now, he said, voice cold as steel. But how? Layla's voice was low, but steady. They've already gotten to him. They know where I live, what I study, even where my mother shops. You built an empire, Zion, but I'm still just a student caught in a storm. You were never just anything, he snapped. Then he softened. And you're not in this storm. You are the storm. They made the mistake of thinking they could break you. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe in her own fire. But fear was tightening in her chest like a vice. And what happens when they come again? She asked. What happens when I'm not just a distraction, but the weapon they use to take everything from you? Zion turned toward her, suddenly deliberate, decisive. Then I do what I should have done from the beginning. What do you mean? He pulled something from his desk drawer, a small, black velvet box. Layla's breath caught. No, she whispered. Zion, don't. But he stepped closer, eyes blazing not with fear but with resolve. This isn't about saving face or protecting power. This is about giving them no more room to twist what we are. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, sleek, modern, diamondless but set with a flawless, carved onyx stone. Elegant. Sharp. Like her. I don't want to pretend anymore, he said, voice low and aching. You walked into my life like a problem I couldn't solve. And now you're the only answer I have. Tears welled in her eyes. You think marriage will protect me? She whispered. No, he said honestly. But it'll tie us together in a way no one can ignore. You'll be untouchable, not just some intern or student they can smear. You'll be my wife. Legally.
Publicly. Permanently.
Layla turned away, shaking. That sounds like a power play, not a proposal. It's both, he said. But it's also something more.
He took her hand, gently.
I'm not offering you safety. I'm offering you war. With me, not against me. You said you wouldn't be a glass doll. Then be my shield. Be my partner. Stand with me, not behind me. Silence. The fire crackled in the fireplace behind them. She looked down at the ring, then up at him. You said you didn't know how to love anything without fearing it'd be taken from you, she whispered. What makes you think this will be different? Because I'm done loving from a distance. Layla's heart broke and soared at once. Yes, she said. His eyes widened. Yes, he repeated. She nodded, breath shaky. I'll marry you. 3 days later, secret ceremony, private rooftop. Rain still fell, but lightly now, misty and silver under the string lights. Only a few people stood as witnesses. Zion's personal lawyer, his security chief, and her mother, who had flown in under a private security escort, her hands still trembling from the fear of what almost happened. Layla stood beneath a simple canopy, wearing a white dress Zion hadn't chosen. She'd insisted on that much. She wouldn't be someone dressed in his empire's image. She was still herself. Zion took her hands, dressed in black like a man prepared to go to war, and maybe he was. The vows were short. No pomp, no poetry, just truth. Just them. I don't believe in fairy tales, Layla said quietly, her voice carrying through the rooftop. But I believe in fire. And I believe in you. He said nothing, but his hand tightened around hers. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the world didn't cheer. But something shifted. Something powerful. Something unstoppable. End of chapter cliffhanger. Later that night, while Layla stood alone near the rooftop railing, watching the skyline, a shadow stepped forward. It wasn't Zion. It was a woman. Beautiful.
Cold.
Familiar. Congratulations, she said. But marrying Zion doesn't mean you've won. Layla turned slowly. And you are. The woman smiled. I'm the reason his mother disappeared.